2. Hey everybody, welcome to the Teal Tinted Glasses podcast. Another podcast, and this time I promise the audio is going to be perfect, or at least on par with what we normally spit out, and I think that in itself will be a victory. On the panel with me tonight, no Kevin Lacey. Kevin Lacey is in Europe. Lucky guy, but, we can't all go to Europe, so here I am, and with me tonight is Mr. Hockey Jerk.
Hello everybody, I'm glad to be back. As always, if you haven't yet, please follow us on Twitter. I will put all of our Twitter usernames in the chat whenever I feel like it. But you should follow us on Twitter because that's the best way to find out anything that's going on with us, whether we're doing a show or, giving each other a hard time on Twitter and you want to watch. That's the place to be. Of course, aside from the Discord, we are the Discord is open 24/7. We are like 7-Eleven, so if it's Wednesday at 4 p.m. and it's like, you know what? I want to know what Four Paws thinks about Joe Pavelski going to Dallas. You could throw it in the chat and be like, hey, Four Paws, what do you think about Joe Pavelski going to Dallas? And she could reply. And that's what we're trying to do with this Discord and with Twitter, as well as building a community. So join the community. Join us.
Join us. It seems scary at first, but once you get used to it, it's fine. I promise. All right. And also in the channel tonight with me is Mr. Drew Weber. Or not.
Guys, good to be back on with y'all. Yeah, sorry. You're cutting out a bit on my end.
No worries at all. All right, guys. So I think, we got to get started with the biggest news of the night. And that is, at least from a Sharks perspective anyway, was obviously, with the team not quite set yet, we've got a few scratches, but one of the people that was sent down to juniors was Ryan Merkley. He is now playing for the London Knights after being traded from the Peterborough Petes, which obviously ends that little drama fiasco. What do you guys think of him going to the Knights? So far, he has 5 assists in 2 games, so obviously he's doing pretty good. Mr. Jerk.
I think it's great for him. It's tough when your team says that they don't want you, which to me was kind of weird because I thought he played really well with Peterborough, but things happen and whatever, it's fine. But obviously when that happens, when the team come out and says they don't want you, kind of makes it hard to trade you. And I think it's huge that London was willing to give up assets. They weren't a lot of assets. If I'm remembering correctly, it was a 3rd round draft pick and 2 conditional picks in 2024 as well. So not really something London has to worry about right here, right now. But I think it's great. London Knights organization, obviously they have a history of developing and building some really good young men to be ready for the NHL. And the list of names who have come through that program is unreal too. I mean, obviously Mitch Marner, Christian Dvorak, Matthew Tkachuk, Max Domi, but even going back as well, Rick Nash played with the London Knights, and Chris Tierney played with the London Knights. I know Drew will love that one, but it's obviously a good organization for him to be in when you consider the attitude problems, perceived or otherwise. And so I think this was the best case scenario for him. And I mean, we're seeing it now. If you saw the interview after, I want to say last night's game, he couldn't stop smiling and was just talking about how great it was to be in London and how much of a good time he had at camp. So I couldn't tell you if that was the first time he smiled since leaving Peterborough, but he definitely looks happy to be where he is now.
Yeah, Drew, what are your thoughts?
I think it's great to see, like Jerk was saying, how happy he is to be there and to finally kind of get that drama from Peterborough behind. He can focus on hockey. He's got the training camp under his belt, and he's been producing well so far with them, so that's great. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that because London is such a good team, that those numbers may be inflated from what he may get on another team, but I'm glad to see he's happy there, and I'm curious to see how he's going to do this year.
I mean, it's important to note, he was the 2nd highest scoring defenseman in the OHL last season, so he's still, I think he's still definitely going to get his points. But obviously playing on a team like London, which seems to be pretty stacked this year, it's definitely something that it's hard because the London Knights kind of are the like of the OHL, they're like the Patriots or the Red Sox or the Yankees. Like they're the team, like I feel dirty that I have to cheer for them right now because Merkley's there. So obviously I'm going to pay attention to what they're doing. But man, I can't help but feel just a teeny bit dirty about it. I'm not going to lie. One of the things that was interesting though was, after the announcement was made, and I think it was Darren Dreger that put out the tweet that after he had like an impressive camp, and then Kevin Kurz kind of chimed in and he was like, impressive, like he got a concussion and, played one game and then got sent back down. Like I'm like, the kid's got skills, but whatever. I was kind of curious, like, what was your guys' take from his camp? Because for me, I think he had an okay camp. I don't think it was like an amazing camp, but I feel like, I think the fact that he showed up early, I think helps a lot. Like he said in his interview in London, like, he went there a little bit early to kind of get some reps in before the thing. Like, I feel like he got everything he needed to do. Like, I don't, like, being a right shot D on this team, like, there was no room for him this year.
Yeah, I think, I would say his camp was good. I mean, he had a couple of assists, obviously, and when you look at how he played in the rookie face-off going back, whenever it feels like it was so long ago, like those first, that first game and a half of the rookie faceoff was pitiful to watch. And then since that point, obviously his play improved a lot. I mean, there's still a lot he obviously has to work on, but he has a really good knack of getting up in the play and making things happen offensively, which is, I feel like, where the NHL is going for defensemen, but you still obviously want to be able to come back on D and perform the main crux of your job. But I don't think Merkley was a standout by any stretch. I definitely think he had a good camp though, and better showing than the rookie faceoff. So I think, this full year with the London Knights and, if they go to the Memorial Cup, I think it'll be a really good experience with him. And obviously the Hunters, they run that organization very well. So I'm optimistic for him. If he had gotten loaned to, Tappara in the Finnish league, or if he was playing Junior B, then I would be nervous, but I think he's in good hands.
Yeah, I mean, London's like like we said earlier, London's kind of like this factory of players, and I feel like the thing that I liked about Merkley, because I agree, like early on, I feel like Merkley, his game kind of reflects, like when he's in a rookie game and he's kind of like in his own peer group, I think his game reflects that. And you saw signs. I mean, obviously, look at his. I'm not, no one's joking here. Like his two-way game needs work. Period. Flat out. Like the defense that he plays right now is never gonna make it in the NHL. But I feel like as he got playing with more of the vets and stuff like that, like his game adapted accordingly. So I'm hoping that obviously the time in London, I mean, obviously look at things in London are going great now. Right now they're winning. He's getting points. I'm curious to see like if London goes on to a little skid, like that's kind of where I'm going to be like, okay, what's going on with, how's Merkley doing now? Is Tim Hunter going to kill him or not? Like that's kind of where I'm at with Merkley. But I think like London, as far as landing spots go, again, you can't do any worse than that. Like you can do a lot worse than that, rather. I mean, like that's the cream of the crop in the OHL as far as developing talent, as much as it kills me to say that. And I don't know, we may have to change the topic just because I'm like grossed out right now. I don't know. We got a question on Merkley though, and do we feel like he's getting better at being a team player, and will he withstand the first bit of adversity? And I think that kind of goes back to what I just said, right? Like where, things in London are going great. Now he's getting points, they're winning. What happens when what happens if they go on a little bit of a skid? And I think that's going to be interesting to see. I mean, team player, it's hard because like, I don't like to comment on this because I'm not in the locker room. I wasn't in the locker room in Guelph. I wasn't in the locker room in Peterborough. Like, I don't have any firsthand knowledge of said, what his issues actually are. I can tell you the rumors of what his issues are and, what's said about him. And it's hard because, this is a guy who, in my opinion, and I've tweeted this a few times about it, when you see people start tweeting like about Merkley, they come out of the shadows and then they're really vicious at him, right? And I think obviously when you have a reputation like Merkley does, that happens, but how much of that is smoke and mirrors and how much of that is real? And I think that's the hard part for us as to do this as podcasts, because we really don't have an inside. We've never heard anyone in San Jose say anything bad about Merkley. So it's going to be interesting to see when, I don't know what happens, right?
I think too, something that's not really spoken about a whole lot as well is obviously when he was in San Jose, like he was staying with Brent Burns, and Four Paws bringing that up right as I say it. He was staying with Brent Burns, which, I mean, depending on who you ask, maybe Brent Burns is not the best person to ask for advice on playing defense, but I still think he's a good person to obviously kind of latch onto. I mean, he's a veteran guy. He's been in the NHL for a long time, and I think it's a very minor detail, but I think it could prove pivotal. I mean, it's all about, Burns is obviously a very dialed in guy, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a situation where Merkley says, okay, how do you handle this situation? What do you do in this instance? And the idea of having a veteran presence kind of gets overblown quite a bit, but I still think it's something that is in play here. And I think if you think about that, you think about Merkley going to London, I think it's the makings of a good recipe.
Yeah, I like him with Burns because, this is a guy, let's be honest, Burns is a guy who has some, he has a little more personality than your average, player. Well, I mean, they all have personality, but he shows a little more personality than the average player. He has a certain swagger about him, if you will. So I think, like, from that perspective, but, when it's time to get down to business too, like, Burns obviously gets down to business. Like, the guy apparently trains like a monster. And, Merkley definitely needs to get bigger. I don't think, I think that's something that Chris mentioned. And I think that's, the truth for 90% of kids that come through the system is, do they need to get bigger? Yeah, they need to get bigger. So I think, Burns is like, we know Burns is a freak in the gym. So I think that's another, great spot for him to be with too, because, Burns, when he played forward and then had to go back to defense, like it was mentioned how it would change the way that he would train. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And even that was kind of a tough adjustment at first, and then eventually got, as he started training differently and training more focused on that, it definitely, you saw improvements. And I mean, maybe, it's just like selective memories, but I feel like when he was playing forward, I don't remember seeing him be that big of a freak in the gym. Maybe that's just me.
I don't know. I mean, this is, again, I don't follow the guy around him. I'm way up here, but that's the reputation around him, right? Like he's always, that the reputation around him is he is like, his workout is just insanity.
Mm-hmm. Bench pressing like zebras and
rhinoceroses and jumbo, probably
bench pressing those two antelopes that they got him for his his 1000th game.
He's got a whole gem to bench press. I mean, or a whole zoo rather. Anything you want to add on the Merkley thing before I move on here, Drew?
I think it's also cool to note that, remember, the Sharks drafted him when he was 17, correct? So he's younger than your typical defenseman or your typical prospect, and defensemen tend to take longer to develop. So seeing him performing well in London is fantastic, and even if he isn't making the team this year, I don't think any of us really expected him to. It's not something.
We lost Drew.
Can you not hear me?
Oh, you just cut out.
Man, gotta get that Wi-Fi fixed. What are you, in Winnipeg?
Jeez. So I think what I'd like to move on to, though, is obviously sort out the Sharks roster, right? We're getting closer to the what the final roster might look like. Today we had two more demotions to the Barracuda, and that was Jacob Middleton and Antti Suomela. Middleton didn't really surprise me at all. Suomela maybe a little bit surprised when you consider. I don't know. I figured he has such good skill, and I figured he would survive longer. than he did. But Middleton really didn't surprise me because I think just guys, I don't think Middleton really did anything wrong per se. It's just that other guys just performed better. They were just ready to go better, right? Can you get AOL on Discord? Ask for a friend. Apparently you can. So Jacob Middleton and Antti Suomela go down. Jerk, your thoughts on those demotions?
I agree with you. The Suomela, well, really both. I mean, I thought Suomela had a decent camp. Obviously guys outperformed him, but he had a couple goals and I thought he looked well, all things considered, but he's still a guy who's on the short list, obviously, to come up, and play. So I'm not really sweating that one. The Middleton one, I am kind of a little on edge about, only because you expected, with how well he played with the Barracuda last year, you expected him to come into training camp looking ready to take that roster spot, especially with Šimek going down. And, I don't know. I just thought I would have seen more from him, and obviously that wasn't the case, but again, he's still a guy who can come up, so I guess it's not totally the end of the world.
See, because I guess my question is, for me, I mean, is it so much what Middleton, like, I don't know if it's so much what Middleton didn't do as it is what Ferraro did.
Yeah, I could see that 100%. Like, I don't think people expected Ferraro to come in and have a dominant camp. So that's definitely an aspect to it.
Yeah, Drew, anything here if you're there? I don't know.
Yeah, I think Suomela definitely surprised me being sent down more so than Middleton did. Although when I was kind of plotting out lines and stuff like that, Suomela was one of the odd people.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if you guys put together lines that you can show. I made a picture of lines that I can show people, but I had a hard time with putting Suomela in a spot. I'm not gonna lie. Jerk,
yeah,
what about? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's definitely It's like I was saying last show. There's definitely a handful of guys who are good, right? And there's not really, nobody is really kind of identifying themselves as being above the pack as like great players. You know what I mean? I would say, I don't know. I would say probably Radil is the one instance of a guy who's kind of separated himself from the pack. But you're right. There's just so many guys who are all kind of on the same level, and nobody's really, the proverbial brass ring. Everybody's just kind of passed it around. Nobody's really run with it.
It's hard because, we said this on the last show too. We agreed. It was brought up in the chat, and I can't remember who brought it in the chat. And they said, like, the problem with this team with the forwards is you have this, like, the Melker Karlsson group where you have like all these guys that are kind of the same guy. You know what I mean? Like, maybe not like exactly the same guy, but the same level of skill, right? Where it's kind of this group of guys where it's like, especially when you're looking for someone who's going to like step in and take that second line spot, it's hard because like you see these guys and you're like, bottom six guy. I don't know. Like,
I think
go ahead.
I think one of the things that actually like kind of screws Suomela over is actually Melker Karlsson himself, because Karlsson is eating a roster spot that he doesn't necessarily deserve, but he's getting paid.
Yeah, I think here, like, I'm gonna. This is the lines that I kind of, I don't want to say projected, but I guess projected's kind of the. I have reasons behind it. It's not like I don't think that this is going to be the actual lines, but this is what I would do. So here, I'm going to throw these up quick. Oh, crap. Those are Evgeny Kuznetsov lines, not the Sharks lines. I apologize.
Oh, darn.
Wow. Oh.
All right, so I kind of put my lines up there. You might have to click on the picture to make it bigger. This is kind of what I don't think that these will be the actual lines. I think these are probably the guys that make it though. I also included defense pair once Simic is healthy because I think that's going to change a lot. So I'm just going to start with my forward lines and I'll kind of go from there. Like Kane, Couture, LeBanc, I think that's pretty much what people expect at this point. And then, sorry, go ahead.
You think so? I don't know. I think Meyer and Couture are pretty married at the hip at this point.
I don't
see. I have Meyer up there too.
See, the thing is with me, like, and this is maybe why I have thoughts being the way they are. I think that if anything goes wrong, like, De Boer is a creature of habit and he always goes back to what worked previously. And he's always been married to those pairs, right? And Hertl and Meyer was such a great pair that I think when things go south, it's just like Melker Karlsson finding his way to the first line. You know, he puts his buddies back together, like he puts his pairs back together. And so that's why I kind of Hertl and Meyer together. I really think they complement each other. Bergman's a guy that I've kind of had slot in there now, but you could really, you could slot anyone in there at this point, really. I just kind of put Bergman in there because I think he's a guy that, I feel like, I think this is where they wanted, Gambrell to be, but I don't think Gambrell's earned it. And honestly, Gambrell might not even be on the team opening night. And I know some people are probably are gonna hit me on that. So I'm just gonna read this out quick for the people that aren't in the chat and can't see the screen. So I have Kane, Hertl, LeBanc, Meyer, Hertl, Bergman, Sorensen, Thornton, Gambrell. I'm gonna stop there for a second. The reason I have Gambrell and Thornton together is kind of the same reason. Just because the way that Thornton was able to kind of take LeBanc under his wing last year, I think Gambrell's a guy who could really, really use that if he makes the team. I haven't been super impressed with Gambrell in camp. I know he scored those 2 goals last game, but before that, man, it was nothing. And then I have Melker Karlsson, Barclay Goodrow, and Brodzinski as your bottom line, with Radil being the 13th forward. I have Vlasic with Burns, Dylan, Carlson, Ferraro with Heat, and Prout as the 6th man, or the 7th D, but Prout and Heat are going to be interchangeable. Honestly, I think a game like Vegas, Peter DeBoer is not going to be able to help himself. Prout's going to be in the lineup. And then obviously your goaltenders are Jones, Dell. With the defense, with Simic returning once he's healthy and good to go, I have Vlasic with Carlson, I have Simic with Burns, I have Dylan with Heed, and then Prout as the 7th D. But, cause I think that, I know people are gonna be like, whoa, where the hell's Ferraro? But I think once it gets to the point where Simic is back in the lineup, I would rather Mario Ferraro play everything all the time with the Barracuda than sit in the press box or play 5 minutes a night.
I agree with that statement, 100%.
I do too. Do not want to Mirko Mueller him.
No,
exactly. And go ahead. The luxury with Ferraro is he's obviously, like, you just watching him play, and even watching him at the game on against the Flames on Wednesday. Was that Wednesday? Thursday. Ferraro showed that he belonged in the NHL. So even if that doesn't work out, he's going to go to the AHL. And to your point, Ian, he's going to tear that league apart. Maybe not offensively, but he's going to have a really nice plus minus, and he'll probably be very high up. He'll probably get a lot of secondary assists, and he'll have a lot of takeaways, I imagine.
Yeah, he's gonna get big minutes, all situations. I mean, that's what you really want the guy to do at this point. And then I feel like at some point, I feel like the Sharks, I think if Ferraro can continue on the pace that he's on, and there's no reason to think that he can at this point, but if he continues on that pace, I wouldn't be shocked to see the Sharks move Brendan Dillon because I mean, that's, he's a left shot, so he's got to take a guy's spot on the left shot, and he's not taking Vlasic's spot. Shimmick's not making a whole lot of money, so he's a guy that you would definitely want in there. At some point, if Ferraro can keep this up, you got to wonder if they do need help up front, or if they want to make a move, if Dylan's a guy that moves to do that, because to the point in the chat, Dylan, we're not gonna be able to afford Dylan's next contract. Like, there's no way the Sharks can afford to pay Dylan his next contract. They already have way too many dollars wrapped up on the blue line. So I mean, Dylan, you could hold on to him, obviously, if you think that you're in a position to make a good run. But at the same time, if you think that, you're still in a good position to make a good run with Ferraro playing those minutes, that could be a nice, that could be a nice piece that could probably get you a decent return for the Sharks.
Especially with how well he's been playing. Carlson, so you'd be selling high on him, which is what you always try.
Oh, did we lose Drew again?
I don't know. Go ahead. There he is.
AOL, stop.
What we didn't tell you is that he is at Puck Guy's house.
That's right.
Borrowing his wife.
So I don't know, like what are your thoughts on the lines, Jerk? Like, what would you do maybe differently?
All right, so let me scroll up to what you've got here. All right, so like I said, I put Meyer, my top line's Meyer, Couture, Kane, just
which is because there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, 100%. Meyer, Couture, Kane. I'm sorry, Meyer, Couture, LeBanc. I just think Meyer and Couture have a lot of chemistry together, and they both also like to shoot the puck, and so why not put them with LeBanc, who obviously likes to pass the puck. I think same thing with Kane and Hurdle. I think they had a lot of chemistry last season. Obviously, I mean, they both got 30 tucks, so it's kind of hard to deny that. As for, this is going to come way out of left field, I'm putting Radil on that wing with them. I mean, my sample size is incredibly small. I'm only basing this off of the game against the Calgary Flames on Thursday, but Radil played really well with that line. He was making a lot of things happen, using his size and allowing Hurdle and Kane to have space to maneuver. And so I think he was a nice piece on that line. The third line, I feel like you could move some guys around. I think Thornton and Sorensen are obviously married to each other at this point, but I think you have Gambrell there, 100%. I would be down with that. I would also be down with Brodzinski there. I'd be down with Bergman or your Tyken there. I'd throw
probably a guy completely missed completely too, I think.
Yeah, like I would honestly throw a dart. And then the fourth line, I mean, whoever ends up on the fourth line, you're pretty solid. Melker Karlsson, Barclay Goodrow, and then all those guys I also mentioned. Whoever ends up there, you're pretty solid there in that respect. I think ultimately, the big test for this training camp is, okay, who's going to play with Meyer and Couture? Who's going to play with Kane and Hurdle? I think that's the two big question marks, at least for me. And obviously, yes, without Šimek, I do agree with you. Vlasic, Burns, Dylan Carlson, Ferraro Heed, or Ferraro Proud, or Proud
some
Heed.
Combination of yes.
Yeah, I 100%, I'm fine with all that. And then, when Šimek comes back, I go Šimek, Burns again, Dylan Carlson, Vlasic, Heed, Prout. Excuse me, Prout's my extra, and then Ferraro down to the AHL, which, like I said, I think he'll tear it up down there, so I wouldn't really worry whether he's in the NHL or the AHL. But we're pretty close. We almost have the same exact lines.
I completely forgot. And see, that's the thing. Like, I feel like there's we have the locks, right? But like, of the guys that are like up to see who could actually be there. Like, it's interesting because I completely forgot about your Tyken when I was making that list, and he's a guy who definitely could slot into one of those spots. And I don't even have him on my list because I'm dumb. And they're after me. I don't know if you can hear it, but they're after me.
Sorry, I was like totally trying not to choke right there. Oh man, yeah. I mean, I don't want to say your Tyken is a forgettable guy, but he's definitely somebody who's flown under the radar. And he had a good camp. Obviously, I liked what I saw from him playing with Joe Thornton, but I think the big thing is I would like to see the stats there more than anything. But even then, I still think he had a really good camp. And so I could see him go to the Barracuda. I could see him stay. I don't know. A lot of these guys, it's really too tough to tell.
Yeah, it is. It's difficult. It's going to be, and really, I think the other important thing is whatever lineups we see it's going to be fluid. The line that starts opening night against Vegas isn't going to be the opening night for the next 82 games. Like, it's going to be fluid. I think they've got guys down to the AHL that I think they sent down there. I think we can talk about that too. When you talk about a guy like, whoever you talk about guys like your Tyken and stuff that might not even make the night, although I think they do. So, take one of my guys off the list, send him to the AHL. but those guys are going to be hungry to come up. And the end, you know, if the Sharks feel like they need to do something to change things up, or guys just aren't doing what they wanted them to do or expected them to do, yeah, it's going to be, you know, there's going to be a crazy combination of just, you know, of stuff that they could, I don't even know what I'm saying. Let me try that again. You know, there could be call-ups that a guy that maybe, you know, none of us have on the roster right now could end up taking a roster spot a week or two down the road, a month down the road. Sleepy saying in the chat, you know, he's more impressed with Bergman and your Tyken than he is with Gambrell. I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of there with you. Like, Dylan Gambrell, and this is like, it's not like I've always been like super sour on this guy, but really he did have like those 2 goals, and those 2 goals were really nice. But if there's a guy who I've been really like actually disappointed with in camp, it's probably Gambrell. Gambrell's probably my guy that I'm disappointed with, because I think that his game should be further than it is right now when you consider his age, you know, experience, etc. Like that's a guy who we should be getting more from at this point.
I agree. I was expecting him to, especially with, you know, the game he played in the playoffs last year. I gotta, you know, I was thinking that he was going to come in feeling, you know, pumped up, and he hasn't been bad, but he hasn't put himself ahead of the pack like you know, like we all want him to. And I said it after the game on Thursday, but you know, when Gambrell is feeling confident, he can be the best guy in the ice. And unfortunately, he wasn't feeling confident in that game until the third period when he got both those goals. But I'll tell you,
demoted to the bottom line.
Yeah, like that's the thing, demoted to the fourth line, and then he got that first goal, and then after he got that first one, he was immediately noticeable, and he got the second one, and then from there he was, you know, guys were looking for him, but he was also making a lot of things happen. So I think confidence is the big thing with him, and unfortunately with Gambrell, I don't really know what you gain from sending him to the AHL. I mean, he is clearly too good for that league.
Yeah, that's the problem I have too, because I mean, that's where I send him. If you're not going to play him, you definitely send him down to the AHL. And that's kind of why I have him on the Thornton line, because I feel like if there's a guy that could use like the same kind of way that Joe Thornton kind of took Kevin LeBanc under his wing, and we've seen definite positive dividends from that. That is why I really want to see, you know, a guy like Thornton playing with Gambrell, because I think that Gambrell could do a benefit. Because like you said, there are spurts of where you say, you know, this Gambrell's really good. Like, he's going to be a really solid NHL player. But, you know, if you only see that in spurts, like that doesn't land you an NHL job full time, especially when the lineup behind you is, you know, it's long already and it's getting longer.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for him. He's definitely in that position. I think he's in kind of a position similar to who am I thinking of? Almost kind of like a Danny O'Regan, right? Where you think he tears up the AHL and you got to think he's a shoe-in to make the NHL, and then it doesn't really come to fruition, and guys are passing him up, and you know, now he was on a PTO with the Rangers, or maybe he signed with them, but I don't think Gambrell would get put on waivers.
He can't. He's waiver exempt for starters.
Yeah, I think Patrick Marleau would re-sign before Gambrell ends up on waivers. So, you know, but it's tough. I think too. I don't know what I think with Gambrell, because like we've seen DeBoer put him on the fourth line and then he gets pissed off and makes things happen. But then he gets up to the top line and it's like, okay, I'm on the top line. I'm good. My spot's assured, and it's not really. So I don't know. We'll see. He's definitely going to be a guy to monitor. Probably the most important guy to monitor this first, 20 games of the season.
Yeah, and that's not to say, like, I think it's important to say, like, as much as I say, this is a guy I expected more from, being at his, age and experience, but he's still not a guy that you just throw away. Like he's not a throwaway prospect yet. Like, there's still time. It's disappointing because I just feel like he should be further ahead than he is. Like, he shows, I wish he could just, the good things that he shows, I wish we could see that more.
Yeah, well, when he has 20 and 20 this year, we'll be eating our words, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what'll happen. We'll be eating our words. Like, what would you do Drew? What would you do with Gambrell if you're Peter DeBoer or an assistant coach that shall not be named?
I mean, like you guys have been saying when you're making your lineups, I would put him on Thornton's. And Bomb Squad actually brought this. I was like, maybe Jumbo can light a fire under his ass like he did with LeBanc. Because, yeah, I mean, if he's going to tear up the AHL, that's great, but is he going to gain much from that? I think we're going to get more out of him and more development out of it if he stays in the NHL, especially if he's playing with someone like Joe Thornton, who is, he's a mentor, he's a fantastic player, he's a future Hall of Famer, so learning from him, being able to play with him, can only help you.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I'm just trying to see, did he even tear up the AHL last year? What did he do in the AHL last year? 51 games, 45 points. Okay, not terrible. I mean, I don't know if that qualifies as tearing it up. 20 goals, 25 assists. But still,
when you compare it to what everybody else on the Barracuda did,
fair. Fair. Yeah, okay, I will give you that. But I don't know. I'm not saying like you wash your hands of the kid at this point or anything, but he's a guy that in a year down the road, like if he can't solidify a spot, there's he's going to be a guy who might start sliding down the depth chart and sliding down fast, because I think when you look down at some of the guys that may have disappointed us that maybe still are in the conversation, your Chmelevskis, your Chekovich, players of that level, you give those guys another year, and that, then if you're Dylan Gambrell, I mean, that seat's getting pretty warm. The Blichfelds, I think Blichfeld's another guy, who would definitely be in that conversation.
Yeah.
I think, I think the only other guy, Gambrell's kind of been the big disappointment for me in camp. Has there been a guy that's like disappointed you guys at all?
That's hard to say. Because I feel like the guys that I was I guess if you want to talk about Chmelevski, Chekovic, and Blichfeld, I guess you could say I'm disappointed with those guys, only because I expected them to still be on the roster at this point. Like the
Sure.
Worst case scenario was super, super, super late cut. But they obviously were cut relatively early, and none of them really did anything to, like we spoke about earlier, separate themselves from the pack. So it's honestly, it's really tough. Now guys go down and then they come back up and all of a sudden they're rejuvenated. I think about Chris Tierney, his rookie season, but I don't know, man. I guess I would say those three guys I listed are guys that I'm disappointed in, just because you expected, obviously they've never played in the NHL, so you can only expect so much, but I still expected more.
I thought they'd still be in the conversation. I didn't like the amount of players that just, like, there's a lot of spots, and it seems like, like we said earlier about passing the brass ring around, it's like, disappointment might be a strong word, because like Bomb Squad saying like Chmelevski, it's only his first season. You're right. I mean, absolutely, it's his first pro season. I just thought that it just didn't. It's hard to say just from what I saw. And I'm not going to say I watched like every practice and every preseason game and every rookie game or whatever. Like I kind of half watched half the rookie games, and then I've tried to watch in more detail as the roster is filled out the preseason games. I just wanted to see just a little bit more. I just wanted to see guys really come out and really just take the ball and run with it. And maybe because I was looking too hard at some players, like a player like your Tyken and Bergman, maybe I wasn't watching hard enough. And maybe that's, maybe it's my fault that I'm disappointed in those guys, because, I was watching for the wrong guys to really grab the ball and run with it. I think another guy that I would be disappointed in would probably be Alex True.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of him. I mean, he was locked to be the fourth line center, and he was cut with everybody else. I totally forgot about him.
Yeah, because I think like Alex True, like he's truly disappointing. Absolutely. I wanted more from Alex True because I think that he was a guy who really, I think he really should have pushed for a spot better. He's another guy who I put, kind of in the Gambrell category where he's going to be watching guys jump past him in the depth chart now. Which I think is okay for True in one sense, because True kind of, the fact that he's in that conversation this year, I don't think I would have said that last year. But I don't know. Like, I still feel like even like being where we are now, like even though we wouldn't expect him to be in that conversation last year, the fact that we're still here this year and he was sent back so quick, it's still kind of disappointing. I don't know. Drew, any guys that may have disappointed you in camp?
For me, it also goes back to Chmielewski, because when I was making these lineups in my head, like over the offseason, as we all do, I was like, okay, who's going to fill in that top six? And Chmielewski was always the guy who kind of came to my head. He's the one who has that upside and the potential to be in that spot. Mm-hmm. And then when he got cut significantly earlier than I thought he would, along with Blichfeld and along with Chekovich, I was surprised. And then I started wondering, who is going to fill that role then? And then I actually agree with Jerk. I had Lukasz Radil in that second line spot, but I thought for sure Chmielewski would be the one in there to start the season.
I would like to mention one thing as well. You know who we have glossed over that is still in this camp is Manny Wiederer.
Is he? I don't even.
Like he, the game that the Sharks played against Calgary in Calgary, I want to say it was at some point last week. I couldn't tell you the exact date. I said on Twitter, I'm like, Manny Wiederer got drafted 3 years ago, and guys who are younger than him are already showing him up. He needs to do something. And he scored 2 goals. So I don't really want to take credit for it, but, he definitely came to camp with something to prove. And since that point, I haven't really seen a whole lot from him. But, of course, I couldn't even tell you if he's played since that game. So that one's definitely a curious guy still sticking around as well. I obviously am going to be watching. For those who don't know, tomorrow the Sharks do play the Golden Knights in Vegas. And if you want to watch that game, just DM me on Twitter and we'll talk. I'm really going to be hoping that Wiederer gets in tomorrow, and I'm going to be watching him because, I definitely called him out. But if he's going to show me up, then I'll come on the next podcast and I'll say he showed me up. So.
Yeah, it's just interesting because I was reading. I read Kurz's article earlier after I had put my lines together and everything else, and Kurz had mentioned him either, so I'm just wondering if it's like a situation like Nizev where he's hurt and they can't reassign him yet.
That's entirely possible, but I couldn't tell you one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm not sure. If he's still there and they throw him in, great. It just hasn't been like anything that I've read. Like I'm like the name when you brought up the name, I was like, really? And I'm like clacking away, and I'm not, I'm not calling you a liar by any stretch of the imagination, but it's definitely something that I was like, I need to double check this. All right, so the Sharks made a move, and then we can kind of get into some of the other NHL stuff that happened. The Sharks cleared up their crease and put some extra crowding into their blue line. At least at the AHL level. Antoine Bibeau is no longer with the team. He has been traded to the Colorado Avalanche or the Colorado Eagles for Nicholas Meloche. Kevin pointed out to me after I wrote my article about it that the Barracuda defense corps is actually really crowded right now. Like there is 8-9 guys there for obviously 7 spots. But it does clear up the room in the crease, so Bibeau was playing tonight against the Cuda. There you have it.
So he's going to get a shutout, right?
No, Barracuda's winning last I checked.
No, they're winning 3-2.
There we go.
So just a little good-natured rib there. I'm definitely not surprised that this happened. I mean, something had to give. They had more goalies than spots,
Right.
There definitely something had to give there. I was half expecting it to be Dell, but the other half that was I was expecting Bibeau. So I'm not really surprised. I don't know. I maybe see if you can somehow finesse a late round pick out of them, but I mean, defensemen get hurt every day, right? So it can never have too many. And Meloche or Meloche or however you say his name, he's had a relatively decent AHL career. So, maybe he can be a guy similar to a Buddy Robinson where we have very low expectations and then he comes in and does really well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with him, like, the Barracuda, I feel like they had a lot of defensemen. They had a lot of people, last year as well, and people kind of just cycled in and out of the lineup. So I feel like even though they have a lot of guys, like this guy, I don't think his ceiling is where obviously expected to be. This guy was drafted, I think, 40th overall by the Avalanche, early second round pick. And I don't know if he's still ever going to reach that ceiling, but 6'3" right hand shot, definitely checks off some, Doug Wilson boxes for sure. So, what does he go down? I think someone else will probably go down first. I think he's a guy that Doug Wilson signed, but honestly, getting anything for a depth goaltender is, I'm happy when you can get, cause usually depth goaltenders are like future consideration in waiver claims. Bomb Squad on Manny Weeder suffered an upper body injury during a preseason game and hasn't been cleared yet, which means that is why he is still on the roster.
Well, there you have it. Just what you said about future considerations. If you recall back to when Vincent Praplin was traded, I do believe Dale Talon owes Doug Wilson $1 for the vending machine. So I was kind of expecting to see maybe that paid up, but you get the player out of it instead. So. Who knows? Maybe he'll be something.
Yeah, I think, like I said, he's a guy to me that checks off some Doug Wilson boxes. So I would not be shocked to see him be a regular on the Barracuda this year. I'd have to, I don't have Kevin's depth chart in front of me, so I'd have to see whose spot he's taking. But I don't know. I think he's going to get a chance. Like, I don't think, I don't think he's a guy like the Sharks have a big habit of like bringing in guys like as a part of bigger deals, but this really wasn't a big deal. This is kind of like a minor league 1-for-1. This isn't a throw in with an Erik Karlsson or, like the Sharks always seem to bring in this minor league guy with, with a big deal, and then they let the minor league guy go at the end of the season. I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, I feel like Doug Wilson brought this guy in for a reason. I think he's going to probably see some pretty regular AHL minutes, but I don't have Kevin here to tell me I'm wrong.
I mean, I think if you waited a couple hours, it would probably be an appropriate time to, give him a call, and he could do that then.
He could tell me I'm wrong. Where is he now? In Paris?
Yeah, probably.
He could tell me I'm wrong in French?
Yeah, I think... No, he's in the UK right now, which I think is 9 hours ahead of Pacific time. It's 9 or 8.
All right.
Hey, so he should just be waking up then if he wants to get an early start.
Perfect. We can get him in on the show. It'd be perfect.
The first ever global podcast.
8 hours from the global we wouldn't be the first ever global podcast, unfortunately, because Circling the Cup, one of their hosts checks in as actually records from Sweden.
Yes, you were right.
So I can't take credit for that. I don't want Circling the Cup to come knocking on my door, blacken my eyes. We don't need that. All right, so I think that's the Sharks news. I think we covered all the Sharks stuff pretty good. I guess we could talk about some of the other stuff that's happened. Let's start with the players deciding not to reopen the CBA. Yay! I don't know if that's great for them specifically, but yay for us.
Yeah, I mean, it means there's going to be a lockout in 3 years instead of 1. No, I'm just kidding. But
yeah, are you?
But I said it last week when we were talking about this, but I really wouldn't be surprised if the players not reopening the CBA. I wouldn't be surprised if the league looks at that as maybe a sign of good faith, like, hey, they're really not trying to screw things up and make a work stoppage and slow things down, so maybe we can concede on something. I'm not saying that's the case, but I wouldn't be surprised if, the players keeping the status quo makes the league kind of remember that, because I don't know, Olympics are a thing and escrow and all that stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised just because the players want to wait 3 years instead of 1 year. I wouldn't be surprised if the players are ready for a fight.
I think in 3 years, if the league doesn't give them what they want, then for sure, like, then it's going to be a fight. I don't know. Like, to me, from a player's perspective, I feel like they kind of, like, I feel like now is where they're going to have, like, the maximum amount of leverage because obviously the TV deal coming up and everything else, and they could really hurt the league, but at the same time, I don't think they get out of that unscathed. Like, I think, the league would absolutely go for blood. I'm happy there's going to be hockey. I just, I said it on the last show, and I wish that, the audio worked out on the last show, but, like, oh man, it seems like every time the players do this, they get taken to the woodshed. So I mean, I'm glad that they kicked that can down the road a couple of years, because I don't foresee the league being able to get the upper hand in this situation. Like, they never seem to be able to get the upper hand. Like, they're never going to get rid of the cap. Like, the cap's here to stay. Let's be honest. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It's frustrating. It's frustrating as a fan because, like, I feel like they've just kicked the can down the road a couple of years, but I'm glad they did, because I don't really want to have a lockout so soon. I don't want to see a lockout ever again, to be completely honest, but let's just keep the game on the ice for Pete's sake.
Would this be the first time in the Bettman area, and if, let's say there's no lockout when the CBA gets renegotiated, would this be the first time in the Bettman era where there isn't a lockout? Because there's 94, 04, and 2012.
Yes, if they can negotiate a CBA, this will be the first time under Bettman that they would be able to negotiate a CBA without some form of work stoppage, which is insanity.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I mean, I'm hopeful. I mean, like you were saying, I think 3 years should be plenty of time to figure this out.
I'm hoping so. I mean, obviously escrow's the big thing for the players. I don't know how you get around escrow to, get rid of it completely. Like, I don't know how you get rid of it completely with a hard cap. Like, the players aren't going to take on the risk. So obviously if the players want to keep increasing the salary cap, and that's the thing that kind of bothers me about the escrow griping, is that the players are the reason that the escrow has gone up. Like, they voted as a unit to take the escrow over and over and over again. So, and then to cry about it, it kind of baffles my mind.
I mean, and that's the other thing too, is you're kind of, I think from the union's perspective, I feel like, again, like taking escrow, taking a salary cap and the rollback and all this stuff, there's a part of me that thinks eventually the players are going to collect on all these concessions they've made, and I don't know if the league is necessarily going to give in. So,
yeah, I was going to say, have you met Gary Bettman?
Yeah, I was going to say, 3 years is a long time to figure it out, but at the same time, it's like there's still a lot of stuff to siphon through.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't want to like super get into the CBA again, because I think we went too long on it last week. Got really, really dry.
You don't want to bum people out.
I don't want to bum people out, and I don't want to put them to sleep, more importantly. Because I think last week we got a little too into the minutia of the CBA, and I think people fell asleep. So we're not going to do that.
Reading a lot.
Yeah, it was bad. It was terrible. So obviously, the big talk of the summer has been the restricted free agents, and now it appears all of them are basically signed, with the exception of two, and the two that are not signed they're a different animal altogether. You have Jesse Puljujarvi and Julius Honka, both, it's not like they're holding out for big money, they're just holding out to be traded. But all the big money guys are off the board now. Patrick Laine, 2 years, $6.75 million AAV. That one kind of surprised me a little bit, because I'm surprised that it was so short and not more money.
The years, this contract doesn't really surprise me. I thought we were going to see a 3-year deal, but I'm not really surprised by this, because obviously Patrick Laine wants to get paid. You know, he wants to be
Right.
like Mitch Marner and get the 6x10. But aside from, you know, I mean, goals win games, right?
Yes.
And over his career, he's averaged like 32 goals or 31 goals. So obviously he's a hell of a goal scorer. But beyond that, he's not really somebody who does a whole lot of anything else, right? I mean, he doesn't get a lot of assists. He doesn't hit guys. He doesn't back check. He doesn't kill penalties. You know, it reminds me a lot of when Alex Ovechkin first entered the league. The only difference between Ovechkin and Laine is, to my recollection, Ovechkin wasn't really a punk ass about it. That's just me. So I feel like Laine, as good of a goal scorer as he is, I think he still's got a lot of stuff he needs to figure out. And I think, you know, for Laine, by taking the 2-year deal, I think he's expecting that, you know, over these next 2 years, he's going to get, you know, I mean, would anybody be surprised if in these next 2 seasons he got 100 goals? I wouldn't. Like,
Nope.
you know, 50 and 50, I could see it. And then Winnipeg's really going to have to, you know, bring the bank.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Like, I mean, I'm happy for Jets fans this deal got done, because I think the Jets are still going to have a rough season this year, even though they've gotten Laine. We'll get to Kyle Connor in a minute under contract, but you know, and a lot of people, like, I think the thing that drives me a little bit nuts is everyone like kind of looks at that Marner contract, right? And they're like, oh, well, Braden Point got this and Patrick Laine got this. Yeah, okay, they may have gotten that now, and for the next 2 seasons, those deals are going to be nice. But what happens when those deals come up again? Like, you know, I think the thing with the Marner contract is there's term on it. Whereas, like, these deals, like, once they come up again, they could, in 2 years, they could dwarf the Marner contract.
Mm-hmm. Especially if the salary cap's going to be at $100 million, like everybody says.
That's right. Like, yeah, great now, but I don't know. I think a lot of people are really piling on Kyle Dubas, and I know Kyle Dubas is the same guy, so obviously I've got to defend him, but that's not what's happening here. I just feel like, you know, if those guys come in again at, you know, under what you would expect them to in 2 years or 3 years when those deals are up, then okay, fine, cool. You know, Toronto got bent over, but I'm not convinced that's going to happen. I'm convinced that those next deals are going to be just, you know, they're going to get paid, because eventually these guys, especially like you said, you know, could we be surprised if Patrick Laine scores 100 goals? Patrick Laine scores 100 goals over the term of this contract. The dude's going to get bank, and nothing's going to stop him. Like, you know, the Jets are either going to have to pay him or trade him and not get value for him, because there's just no way that if he scores at the rate that he can over the next 2 years, that he's not going to get a huge payday on top of whatever he just got.
And like, hopefully that by that point he'll have earned it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because you don't want to pay a guy because you have to, or because you feel like you have to. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
If 2 years goes by and Laine hasn't figured out the things that he's not good at, then the Jets would have to trade him, and it would suck. They would not get what they want or what he's worth. But, you know, as much as Laine is betting him on himself by going the 2 year route, the Jets are taking a major risk, because I imagine if I'm the Jets, they probably would have liked him to be locked up longer term to avoid
absolutely
avoid having to pay him $11 million a season.
I think that's it, right? Because, like, when you look at Kyle Connor's deal on the other hand, like, he gets a little bit more money now. But he's only, you know, his AAV is only, what, 7.14 for the next 7 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, you know, so I mean, like, obviously, you know, I think Kyle Connor, you know, I like this deal for Kyle Connor, but I think, you know, again, like, Kyle Connor might look at himself down the road and be like, oh man, I should have did what Laine did. Because I think that's going to be a steal. Like, I think at the end of this deal, it is already a steal. It's absolutely a steal, but it's going to be a steal for a long time, and I think it's only going to get better as time goes on. People are going to look at that. Like, I feel like Kyle Connor's contract, like, it's going to be, in 4 years, it's going to be the new Nathan McKinnon.
Oh, easily.
I mean, it's amazing how that works. Like, Laine, the other thing with Laine, going back to Laine for a second, like, Ovechkin signed, like, was able to sign one of those big, backbiting deals that obviously aren't allowed in the CBA anymore. And I think that obviously affects things a lot too, because, and also I think like when Ovechkin came in, like, it was him and Crosby. Like those guys were like heads and tails above everyone else. This RFA class, you had 9 guys that were all looking for big money. Like it's just, I think that's the difference too. But I think they both have pulled controlleritis sometimes. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Drew, any thoughts on the Kyle Connor, Patrick Laine contracts? Drew.
Sorry, you cut out on me.
That's okay.
I was actually at dinner when Kyle Connor got signed, so I am just finding out that he signed. I mean, I agree with the production that he had last season. I think, in a few years, that could be the new Nathan MacKinnon contract. Going back to Laine, I know, Ian, you said the dollars you thought was a little low. Mm-hmm. I think he lost a lot of negotiating power last year. He only recorded 50 points, which is the lowest of his career. He had 70 and 64 the year before. His possession numbers are not that great for how much he starts in the offensive zone. And like Hockey Jerk mentioned, if he's not scoring, he's really not doing anything else. So if you want to get paid like a big goal scorer, you got to score more than Timo Meier or Evander Kane. You got to be putting up 40 plus if you want to get paid like an Alexander Ovechkin kind of thing. If you want to be that kind of player,
yeah, 40's got to be your floor.
Exactly.
Which I mean is a lot to ask for, but
Sure, but I mean, if you want the money, I mean, that's the thing. Which kind of brings me to another guy, because, and I'm not, and I'm glad you're here, Drew, because I'm not 100% on this, and I need you to set me straight. Mikko Rantanen gets 6 by 9.25. Now, points-wise, Rantanen seems to be, obviously you can't argue with the points, but analytically, I feel like the analytics people are kind of down on Rantanen compared to what he actually puts out. And I was wondering if you could maybe make sense of that for me.
I'm going to have to dig in a little bit.
That's
more.
Homework. I didn't mean to just dump that on you.
I will look into that right now, though.
Okay. I will say this. Rantanen got hurt this year, only played 74 games. And obviously, I want to say he came back from that injury, but wasn't still 100% healthy either. I'll tell you this. If he's healthy and plays 82 games, 100 points. I'm telling you right now. Like, it's a lot of money, but like if him and McKinnon just get going, and obviously, with Cale Makar and with Bowen Byram and with all these defensemen who can get them the puck, like, Rantanen and McKinnon could easily become a McDavid Draisaitl level of just insanity.
I feel like Colorado too, like I'm looking up Colorado, like the other teams that had to, negotiate with these guys had cap problems. Mm-hmm. Colorado really doesn't have cap problems. Like even with Rantanen under contract, they're still sitting on like $6 million in cap space.
Yeah, they've got 6.3, so they could, if they wanted to, they could bring in another piece. Not that they're going to. But.
No, but I mean, like I mean, eventually there's going to be guys in that team that are going to have to get paid at some point. But having all that cap space, I mean, that really, maybe this kind of went under the radar for how long this could have taken for it to get done. Like it really wasn't a deal that I really, I looked at like the acrimony between Laine and the Jets and Marner and Toronto, but I never really looked at, Mikko Rantanen, the fact that I just kind of figured this was a deal that was just going to get done. I didn't think it was going to take this long to get done. And I was honestly like, when we were doing the notes today before he actually signed, I'm like, holy crap, Mikko Rantanen's not signed yet. Like, I just thought it would just get done. And I can't imagine how difficult that'd be for Colorado, because at least, the other teams could be like, well, hey, dude, like, cap space, man, cap space. And Mikko Rantanen's like, yeah, cap space. You still have $6 million. Like, where's my money?
As the millennials say, run me my money.
Run me my money. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what some of these other teams do, because obviously like Marner and Toronto, and this is what the podcast have to do with the Maple Leafs, they're going to have to, there's going to be pain coming in there. there's going to be pain coming up for them as far as cap goes. I mean, I think the Sharks, we've, talked about this ad nauseum about how there's going to be pain for the Sharks coming up. Like, Brendan Dillon is a guy who the Sharks are probably going to have to cast off because, they just can't afford to keep him.
Pain without love.
Pain without love, absolutely. Drew, do you have anything yet? I just want to wander too far.
No, go ahead.
Okay. It's maybe something we can revisit. I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe numbers people do like him a little more than they do. I just feel like, some stuff on Twitter, and I haven't really done the digging myself because I'm not smart. I'm not smart like Drew, guys.
So Laurel wants to know what broke, and what broke is so on Drew has a hockeycorsi.com bookmarked, and he clicked on it, and the first thing he saw was how somebody on the Sharks Corsi for percentage was under 50%, and so he threw his computer out the window. That's what I think happened.
It was also a utensil falling in my kitchen, probably.
The Corsi 4 relative for Brendan Dillon is nowhere near where I want it to be.
There we go.
There it is.
Here we have it. We did this last show, but we lost the last show because of of garbage audio problems that I've fixed this time, and everything's going to be cool. I tested it. We tested it before we came on. Everything's going to be good. How do you guys see the Pacific shaping up?
You talking like a ranking sort of thing?
Yeah. Because we lost last show, got garbled, so I figured it's a good way to probably wrap up this show is just kind of, because next time we talk, let's be honest, I mean, there's going to be actual hockey to talk about, real hockey, real points and mattering, and yeah.
I love games that matter.
Games that matter, exactly.
It's kind of hard for me to go 1 through 8, right? It's tough because I feel like there are a lot of teams that are obviously really similar. But I have San Jose and Vegas fighting for 1 and 2. Chekovic just scored for the Barracuda. That's good to know. Thank you, Jerry. I have the Barracuda and Vegas. The Barracuda, Jesus. The Sharks and Vegas fighting for 1 and 2. 3, 4, 5. I'm looking at Calgary. I'm looking at Arizona, and honestly, I'm looking at our friends over in Vancouver. And then 6, 7, 8. I think. Well, 8 is LA. 6 and 7 is probably Edmonton and Anaheim. But even then, honestly, 4 through 7, you could mix it up. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be surprised at all. The division, I've said this the last 2 years, the division is competitive, but it's because everybody is just sort of meh.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I was higher on Arizona until I heard that Antti Ranta's hurt again, and now I'm less high on Arizona.
Same.
That kind of just I think I tweeted out something like, remember all those things I said about Arizona? Take them back. Because if they can get a healthy year out of Antti Ranta, I think they can be competitive. I think that they can surprise people. I think I completely forgot that Phil Kessel was there. And I think Phil Kessel's going to help them. There's a lot of interesting guys there. I think the next couple of years is really going to put Arizona to the fire as far as their development, because I think that developmentally, I think Arizona should be taking a lot of heat at this point, especially when you saw what Dylan Strome did on Chicago after going to Chicago. He kind of broke out there. Now, obviously, having Alex DeBrincat on his wing is certainly going to help that. But at the same time, Arizona's drafted a lot of high players. They've had a lot of high draft picks, and they don't have a whole lot to show for it as far as gaining traction. So I really feel in the next couple of years, if Arizona can't do something, developmentally, there's something very broken there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I remember a few years ago when Hockey Jerk and I kept going back and forth. It was Arizona's going to be good. And I'm like, nah, Carolina's going to be good. And then, of course, I ended up being right because Carolina went to the Eastern Conference Finals and Arizona hasn't done anything.
Yeah.
But beside the point,
does Carolina
I
have
agreed with Hockey Jerk. I agreed with Hockey Jerk that Arizona should be really good in a few years, but that it hasn't panned out, and I just don't know why.
Well, I think a lot of that. I mean, guys underperforming, right? Like obviously Dylan Strome. Dylan Strome is a guy who put up 100 points multiple times in junior, and yeah, he was with Connor McDavid and he was with DeBrincat, but still hell of a player in his own right, and he underperformed. I mean, Clayton Keller's had a really good
there's skating
career.
issues there too. Like with Dylan Strome, like skating was always an issue there. Like there was always concerns about his skating translating to the NHL game, but even still,
yeah, and Clayton Keller has not had a bad career by any stretch, but he's not at the level that guys he was drafted with are. Obviously Matt Tkachuk, who is one of his buddies, has obviously done more than he has, and same thing, obviously Line A and Matthews are in another level, but those guys from that 2016 draft, they've kind of outshined Clayton Keller, and so I think I don't think that Clayton Keller has to do everything. I don't think that would be fair to ask of him, but
right,
you want this guy, considering he just signed a fat contract too. I want to say it's like 7x7. For 7x7, like you better put up 90 points and you better do it quick.
Yeah,
like otherwise you're going to be in serious trouble. And I think a lot of that too. I mean, it's the same thing that we saw. We've seen with the Sharks, obviously, where, a guy is supposed to have a lot of talent, but because he's not playing with anybody who's talented, it's harder for him to generate offense. And I think, like, Keller, obviously, on that left wing, and then if you have Phil Kessel on the right wing, and whoever's at center, whether it's Derek Stepan, whether it's Nick Schmaltz, whoever, Carl Soderberg, like, I think Kessel and Keller, which is going to be very annoying to say those names in the same sentence, I think those guys are going to be able to light it up, but it's like Drew. For those who don't know, Drew and I have been friends for a long time, and I've been saying Arizona is going to do something for like the last 4 years, and that's not an exaggeration. It's been 4 years, so
right. It really has.
Tick-tock on the clock, as I always say.
It frustrates me because I'm there too. Like I've been a guy who has constantly said, "Okay, whoa, look out for Arizona this year." And I think last year was the first year I'm like, "No, I'm not doing it." And this year I'm kind of like, the best you'll get out of me on Arizona from now on is like cautiously optimistic, which I was this year until the Ronta news came out. And I don't know what came of the Ronta news. I don't know if it's long term, short term, whatever. But if he can't put together a healthy season, that team, I can't see that team doing anything. I'm with
Darcy,
you.
You're telling me you have no confidence in Darcy Kemper playing 70 games?
Yeah, no, don't. I don't.
The internet, just sorry to interrupt, the internet says Ranta is day-to-day.
Okay, well, then that could be... he gets injured so often.
Yeah, he really does.
He's... yeah, like, it's bad. It's almost getting as bad as, like... it's getting Rick DiPietro bad. It's Ben Bishop bad. Ooh,
oh,
yes.
God.
Except Ben Bishop's actually figured out how to stay healthy now, which is good.
And Ben Bishop's actually, Ben Bishop's a really good goalie when he's healthy.
Best goalie in the league. Please at me.
Wow.
Ben Bishop.
I think I will.
Yeah, I will at you too. Go ahead and take that hot take.
Okay, so for me, I'm looking at the Pacific, and I'm saying, yeah, I agree. I think LA is going to be garbage. I think they don't want to be. I don't think they have a choice. That's just the bed you've made, right? Anaheim, see, this is where it gets ishy, right? Like, I feel like Edmonton's probably your second last team there, although, new coach, new everything else, maybe they surprise. Again, the best you're going to get out of me with Edmonton is cautiously optimistic, and I'm just cautious.
I've had this conversation. Edmonton is going to be either 4th or 7th. There's no difference.
I feel like Anaheim, like Edmonton is kind of like on the bottom. I feel like, yeah, Anaheim, Arizona, Vancouver, Calgary, you throw a dart. Yeah. I really don't know where, like, I just don't have an order for those teams. And then, I think it's Vegas with the division probably by a healthy margin, and then the Sharks. As much as everyone is like, there's a lot of concern around the Sharks, especially their forward depth, but even with all these issues that the Sharks have, I still have them in second. Like, that's the Pacific.
Well, and here's the thing too with the Sharks is like, yeah, the forward depth may be lacking in some aspects, but they still arguably have the best blue line in the league. I mean, how many teams have Brent Burns, Erik Karlsson, and Marc-Edouard Vlasic possibly playing on all separate lines? Like, that's
right. And I had the chat with Andy Man on Twitter at Bleeding Teal. And he brought up a really good point. Because a lot of, obviously, the easy talking point with the Sharks is Joe Pavelski's gone. How do they replace Joe Pavelski? Even without Joe Pavelski's production, the Sharks are still plus 22 in the shot differential, or in the goal differential, sorry. And that's if everyone kind of stays the same. But I think a healthy Erik Karlsson, and this is just quoting him, and he's not wrong. Healthy Erik Karlsson's going to score a hell of a lot more than 3 goals.
Oh, definitely. And you think I should knock on wood when I say this, the goaltending can't get any worse, right? You got to expect a bounce back. maybe not to maybe not to league average, but God, I hope it's not 31st in the league.
The only way it could get worse is if they're 32nd in the league, and even though
Seattle comes in early.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing, right? Like, I think the goaltending, I don't think the goaltending is going to be the best in the league, but I don't think it's going to be the worst again. And I think, one of the things that, we've always said on this podcast is the defense took a dip when Bugner left. Well, Bugner's back. So I think, I think Bugner is going to have a really good, a guy that I think Bugner is going to have just a hell of an effect on if given the opportunity is Tim Heed.
Yeah.
I can see him having an effect on Ferraro too.
Absolutely. But I think for a guy who, I think I use Tim Heed as an example because I think Ferraro for sure, but I think Tim Heed because I think, with Brent Burns, we saw, under Bugner, we saw a less, Brent Burns is always going to starfish and he's going to do all his things, but his defense was better with Bob Bugner. And I feel like Tim Heed's a guy who, gets a lot of flack for his play on the defensive side of the puck. And I think, I'm curious to see by the end of the season, if Tim Heed's still on this team, how much of a noticeable difference it makes to have him, how he looks at the end of the year compared to the start with Bob Bugner, your Bugner on the bench.
It's hard to say, but I think you're right. Saying that Bugner is going to help Tim Heed because we started to see him, improvements with Tim Heed, like going into last year, obviously, and then when he was playing with Vlasic too. But
that
now
helps.
And now with Bugner coming back, theoretically everything should be even better. You know what I mean? And
you would hope.
Yeah, and so we'll see. I think Bugner's going to help across the board because there were a couple years where like the penalty kill and just defense in general was best in the league, and then it's no secret that it got worse when Bugner left, and now he's back. So obviously you'd think it should get better, and it's the right time too because if the defense is going to get better with Bugner back, and the offense is already pretty damn good. So,
yeah,
we'll see. I mean, the Sharks might have a very underrated chance at taking this division and just being a good team all around, better than we think.
I think this team is going to surprise people. I think the problem around, I think a lot of the problem, because a lot of people are pretty panicked right now, and I get it. Look, when you look at, you take Joe Pavelski's points away, and that looks scary. That looks scary. And then, of course, that's been the big talking point all summer, has been, oh my God, Joe Pavelski's gone. Oh my God, Joe Pavelski's gone. And a lot of it's come from, because let's be honest, when summer hits, I mean, even we went on hiatus most of the summer. There's not a whole lot of Sharks talk, so you get a lot of talking points from people on the outside looking in. And I think this team's going to be better than people think. Yeah, look at a couple of injuries up front, and this team's in trouble. I'm not going to dispute that. But I feel like, all things being equal, this team isn't going to be that... people are making sound like this team's going to be completely offensively inept, and I don't see it. I think they're going to be fine.
I mean, if you taking away Pavelski, there's still 4 20-goal scorers and 2...
Yep.
Yeah, Hertl and Meyer and Kane all hit 30. Couture was at 27, and there's no reason to think LeBanc is not going to get... LeBanc's going to get more than 17. I hope Sorensen hits 17. And then obviously, guys who come in. I think Brodzinski's going to have a good year if he's playing with Joe Thornton. I think we'll see a lot from Gambrell. I think Radil is poised to have a good year. It's going to come from everywhere. And, you get guys feeling good and then all of a sudden, they just go off. I don't think just because we don't have Pavelski and Donskoy and Donskoy, I mean, at that dollar, Colorado can have him. But, Pavelski and Nyquist, the Sharks are still, like I said, I think the Sharks are going to win the division. Vegas's top 2 lines are disgustingly good. But, beyond that, the defense is pretty average, and Marc-Andre Fleury is going to play too many games. So I still give the edge to the Sharks in terms of the division.
I don't know. I mean, for this first game, they want revenge.
Whatever. So the Sharks will score 5 goals in 4. Who cares?
I'm still going to give a little bit of the edge to Vegas just because that second line, if you want to call it a second line, with Stone, Pacioretty, and where am I blanking on who that third one is?
Stastny.
That's going to be terrifying for an entire season because they were so good once.
We only play them 5 times a year.
Yeah, come on.
I'm saying just chasing them though, but yeah.
No, you're 100% right. It's that their top 6 is deadly, but
it's not pretty.
Mark Stone could. I mean, I'm gonna say it right here. Mark Stone could have won the Hart Trophy this year. Just to give you an idea of how good he really is. And you're right. Vegas is definitely, they're definitely somebody to keep an eye on. But I don't know. Like I said, that defense is very average for me.
Yeah.
They did lose a lot of supporting pieces, too, because of the salary cap. I think Miller's gone, Hall is gone. Gusev was never really there, but now he's no longer an asset to them.
I'll say this. I missed the part where that's my problem.
Okay, so let's I want to do something here, and then we should probably get out of here because, we run long all the time. And I always say that, I'm going to get the time down, guys. I really am. No, I'm never going to get the time down. Who do you think, just overall, league-wide, who's going to be the big surprise this year as far as, teams go? A team that's going to jump out and really surprise people? And what team that everyone might be high on you think is going to disappoint? I'll start with Jerk.
So, team everybody's high on that's going to disappoint? Calgary. Mm-hmm. Team that everybody is low on that's going to tear it up? Florida Panthers. There you go.
All right. Drew, do you want to go on that?
Is it in my own, or you want me to respond to Jerk?
You can do your own, or you can tell Jerk how wrong he is. I don't care.
Team.
Carolina's going to go to the finals.
They are, because Jake Gardner.
Oh man.
No, team that a lot of people are high on. I think Colorado isn't going to be as good as a lot of people are making them out to be. And even I did this when I was doing my previews. But, you get Nazem Kadri, but you give up Kerfoot, which is, production-wise, they're fairly similar, actually, to each other. Kadri's the better player, but you lose Kerfoot, you lose Barry. Your blue line, is going to have to make up for Barry, which it may very well be able to, but their forward depth still isn't that great beyond that top 6.
That's bold.
And then Carolina for the cup.
I don't know. I guess people are probably high on the Devils. I think the Devils are gonna be better than people think they're gonna be. Like, I think people expect the Devils to be good this year, but I think the Devils are gonna be really, really good this year. Like, contend for the Metro good.
Well, like if you've watched any of their preseason games, like Jack Hughes is already like a menace. Like, he's so good.
And team that people are high on that aren't going to do good. See, I ask these questions. I don't even have an answer for them.
San Jose?
No, that's terrible. Team that people might be high on that might disappoint. Nashville?
Yeah, I could see that.
Like, I don't know. Like, there's so many things I like about Nashville, but there's still like, is there a team that has ever seemed like stuck in the mud as much as Nashville does right now?
Yeah, like, Nashville's the problem is, like, they have a lot of talented guys on there, but like nobody wants to do anything. Like why Philip Forsberg hasn't hit 40 goals yet, I'm not sure. Right.
And I don't think I think losing Subban, obviously, like, for cap reasons, like, Subban had to go, but I don't think that hurts them. I think Nashville, like, is one of those teams that you just perennially have, like, oh yeah, they're going to be good. They're going to be good. It's a cup threat. This is a cup threat. I think they could fall down, and they could fall down really hard, because I think there's a lot of teams in the Central that, I think the Jets are definitely on the downslide as well. But I think, Chicago is on a bit of an upswing. I think they might surprise a lot of people this year, provided they can get decent goaltending. That Central, I think, is going to be, it usually is pretty competitive, and I don't see that being different this year. And I think, if the Jets don't fall as hard as I think they will, then Nashville could be the team that other teams leap over to advance that.
Yeah, I could see that.
Just real quick, what do you guys think are reasonable expectations for the Rangers this year with how much they've added over the offseason?
I think they will go to the second round and lose in 6 games.
Man, that Metro's going to be rough this year, because I think there's a lot of teams in the Metro that should do well. Like, the Metro. The problem with the Metro division is they don't have, like, the Atlantic division has Ottawa to kick around. The Metro doesn't have that team anymore. They don't have that team that everyone's just going to kick around. Oh man, I think as long as they're in the conversation for the playoffs, that's a good season for the Rangers. Like, as long as they're in that conversation, because, and then obviously they have to continue trending up from there, because no one wants to be the team that finishes just out of the playoffs, just bad enough to not make the playoffs, but not good enough to get a decent playoff spot, or decent draft pick, right? Like, the Rangers just need to keep developing. So I think as long as they're in the conversation for the playoffs, I think that's a successful season for the Rangers.
I'd agree with that too. I think, the Metro is interesting because you could argue 3 of the most improved teams are on that division, between the Rangers, the Devils, and Jerk's going to be mad at me for this, but the Hurricanes.
Right, and I think the Flyers should be better.
I don't know about that. I mean, it's tough. Better, yes, but playoff teams, I'm not so sure.
That's the thing, but that's a division that could just cannibalize each other.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I think, if you ask me, I think any team who has Brian Elliott as their goalie, though, deserves to miss the playoffs, but that's just me. So I don't know. Hart. I mean, starter Hart, obviously he's going to tear it up there, but, I still, like, Provorov, Niskanen, Gostisbehere, that's a nice top 3 defense, but, like, beyond that, like, Braun is your 4th best defenseman. That's tough. Sanheim's obviously a good little player, but Kevin Hayes, $7.142 million.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Lol.
And Nolan Patrick is hurt, obviously. And I mean, that top line, Sean Couturier, Claude Giroux, whoever else, Travis Konechny. I mean, obviously it's a beauty top line, but like Jake Voracek, he once upon a time, he put up like 85 points, and put up 80 points twice. And since then, he's been, a 60-point guy, which is not bad. But considering that contract, you want a little bit more out of him. And a product of that is Voracek hasn't really played with anybody good the last couple of years. I mean, Nolan Patrick's really struggled to get things rolling.
It's going to be interesting to see because they have Alain Vigneault this year, right? New coach.
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting. Like, there's a couple of teams like that where it's going to be interesting to see like how the new coach has, what effect that has on them. It's going to be interesting. I don't know. I see that team as a team that's going to like a lot of the team. There could be a lot of cannibalization of points in that division because, like I said, they don't have an Ottawa to kick around and just eat points and feast on, right? Like, you play most of the games in your division and there's really not a, there's maybe teams that aren't great, but there's not a terrible team in that division. I don't know. Hey, well, if you have thoughts on anything that we've discussed, feel free to either hit us up on Twitter or definitely join our Discord server. Again, like Jerk said at the top of the show, Discord server is up and running all the time. You can always come in and chat hockey, and I'm generally in. So if I see something being discussed, I'm definitely going to be a guy that's going to come in and have conversations with people. So it's community building, and then as we get going forward, hopefully we start getting back to where we were on the YouTube, where we had 30 people listening to a show live. But I'm hoping that once people get used to the Discord, everything is going to be good. Other than that, though, I think this is good. I think our last two shows, it's kind of worked out really, really, really good. So I don't know. I hope that you guys agree with me. If you guys have any insights or anything like that, that you want from us, let me know. Live video. The problem with live video is that my computer does not have the up speed for it, unfortunately. So what would happen is if we did a video, there would be a lot more breaking up. It'd be a lot of start-stop, and it would just not be a good live experience. The audio that I record would probably be okay, but this is honestly, I think once people get used to the video not being there and realize what we can do in the chat, I think people are going to really find themselves at home here. All right. Other than that, final thoughts, Mr. Drew Weber. Drew.
Oh, yep. Cut out right when you said the name. I was like, oh, who's it going to be? Hoping Hockey Jerk was going to start talking. All right. Good to be back on with y'all. Hopefully my internet gets a little bit better in the future. You can find me at puck_over_glass. And I'm back writing for Teal Tinted Glasses, which I'm very excited for. Got some season preview articles up there. Got an article about... What was my last article about?
Stuff.
I got an article about stuff. That's going to drive me nuts. And then I have an article coming out soon about proposed tax-adjusted salary cap that could help with #parity in the league.
Ooh. All right. Mr. Hockey Jerk.
All right, guys, we made it through another show on Discord. I still stand by it. I think Discord was the right option for us because, the chat was, at least for me, much easier to follow along with, and I was able to actually enjoy what a lot of you guys were saying in here, and obviously you can react to things and that kind of stuff. I'm going to see if I can find a really good GIF here. This woman in the orange is how I feel about using Discord. So that should tell you. We're going to keep at it, obviously. A lot of stuff we're still trying to figure out. But yeah, we're hoping to be back to where we were 2 seasons ago, obviously being that weekly, general NHL show for you guys. But, obviously you should follow all of us on Twitter. I pasted the links for all of us up there. I will do it again right now. But if you want to follow me specifically, because come on, we all know who your favorite is here. You can follow me on Twitter at @hockey_jerk. That's going to be the place to be. I spend a lot of time there. I watch a lot of hockey games, so if you too are watching a specific game that I happen to be watching, tweet me, ask me things about it. Let's also, jump into the Discord a lot. We, haven't really messed around with the full potential of this, but, I think something we could do that would be really cool would be having like, discussions during the game, like live in the moment as it happens. So
yes,
a lot of different things we can do. So definitely you'll want to stick to Twitter for all those updates and join the Discord. Like I said, we're 7-11, I don't sleep a lot. So if it's 1 a.m. and you want to ask me how Jake McGrew is doing, go for it. Back to you, Ian.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like I said, the Discord, I think it's going to be awesome because, again, it's community building. It's always on. And the thing that's great about the Discord server is it's all Sharks hockey. I know Twitter, look, man, Twitter for over the next year is going to get unbearable. It's going to be awful. I'm not going to say why. We all know why. It's going to be brutal. So I think the Discord's going to be awesome. It's going to be a nice escape to just come, talk hockey, laugh with your friends. It's going to be great. As Drew said, please check out our website, tealtintedglasses.com. The articles are there. He's put a lot of work into them. I'm hoping to add something of my own there very soon as well. Other than that, I mean, it's, I can't wait to do another season. I mean, I can't wait for, like, the season's almost here. It's like Christmas morning. I can't wait. And, I can't wait to have actual hockey to talk about, which is going to be awesome because I'm really tired of talking about CBA and RFAs that are RFAs. All right. That is it. That is the show. Thank you so much for coming in and listening. Thank you so much if you're listening after the fact. Again, the show is going to continue to come in all the ways that you'd normally get it. It's going to be on your podcatcher. It's going to be on YouTube still, even though there's no video. So, tell 2 friends, all that wonderful stuff. Hoping to, should we make I could probably make a fantasy league. Watch Twitter. I might make a fantasy league. I can probably do that. We have to do a draft really, really fast though. Okay.
I can't wait to join and then stop playing so that my thing gets like dispersed like it always does.
Okay. I will get back to you guys on that, fantasy. Anyway, follow my Twitter, TGG Fantasy League. I'll try and do it so that people have enough time to sign up, draft, whatever. That is what it is. All right, guys. I really appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate the continued support, and I'm looking forward to another awesome season of podcasting and, talking hockey with all of you guys. Have yourselves a great night, and that is it. Goodbye. Okay. I'm going to go do some stuff now. Thanks for listening, guys. All right. That was good.